19th of September 1944. Rain was falling in soft sheets over the muddy fields of Holland as Private First Class William "Billy" Hart wiped the moisture from his scope. The Sherman tank around him rumbled gently like a beast at rest, its engine humming low, waiting for orders. The crew had been up all night after crossing the border near Nijmegen. Billy's body was exhausted, but his hands, curled around the gun controls, stayed alert. He had been inside that steel box for weeks now. The smell of oil, sweat, and gunpowder was part of his skin. Billy wasn't the loud one in the crew. That role belonged to Thompson, the driver with a smart mouth and nerves of iron. Behind him sat Jenkins, the radio man, always humming jazz tunes. Up top was Sergeant Donnelly, the tank commander, a 30-year-old with tired eyes who smoked cigarettes like they were air. And then there was Miller, the loader, big, quiet, and fast as hell when it came to ramming a shell into the barrel. Their mission was simple: support the infantry pushing toward Arnhem and knock out anything with a swastika that moved. But simple meant nothing in war. For the past 3 days, German resistance had grown teeth. Panthers and tigers were waiting like wolves in the woods, killing Shermans with one shot, while Allied tanks needed 3, 4, sometimes more, just to scratch them. Billy had missed 2 shots the day before. One bounced right off a Panzer's frontal armor. The other struck a wall beside it. They'd gotten lucky when artillery scared the Germans off. But Billy hadn't forgiven himself. He stayed up late, staring at the gun sight, whispering to it like it might talk back. That's when he noticed it, just a little tilt. Almost nothing. The crosshair leaned off by an inch when he tracked from left to right. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks. Then he adjusted the elevation and noticed the drift again. Something was off in the optics. Maybe it had been since France. He pulled out a small wrench, loosened the side bracket, and gently nudged the sight. Just 1 inch, that's all. But it clicked in his mind like a locked door swinging open. The next morning, orders came through. A German armored column was spotted, moving through a village just ahead. Infantry couldn't advance until the tanks were cleared. Billy's heart thudded like a drum. This was his shot to redeem himself. They rolled out at dawn, treads crunching over shattered roads and burnt-out cars. Smoke curled from distant rooftops, and the air smelled of damp ash and diesel. The village was small, brick houses, narrow streets, and ruined fences. Somewhere in there, German armor was waiting. Sergeant Donnelly signaled for them to take cover behind a collapsed barn wall. "Eyes open," he muttered, peering through his binoculars. "Panzer III, left street moving slow. Might be more." Billy breathed in deep. His hands were steady now. He lined up the scope and saw it, a dark shape moving through mist. This time the crosshair held firm. No drift, no wobble. Just one smooth line across the turret. "On target," Billy said. "Fire!" The tank shook with a deafening roar. Smoke belched from the barrel, and the shell screamed across the alley. It struck the Panzer just below the turret ring. A blinding flash, then flames. The German tank stuttered, groaned, and exploded from within. Cheers burst inside the Sherman, but Billy was already swinging the barrel to the next target. Another tank appeared, this one a Panther, sleek and deadly. It hadn't seen them yet. Second one, 12 o'clock. He didn't wait for the command this time. He locked in the shot, tracked it as it turned, and fired. Direct hit. The shells slammed into the side armor, and within seconds smoke began to pour out the hatch. The crew bailed, running toward the alley, but they were cut down by infantry. Billy sat back in his seat, heart pounding, ears ringing. 2 kills. Clean shots. 1 inch had made all the difference. Donnelly looked down through the hatch, wide-eyed. "You good, Hart?" Billy nodded, still gripping the scope. "Hell, son, you just made that Sherman bark like a tiger." He didn't answer. He just looked through the sight again, scanning, waiting. There would be more, always more. And this time, he'd be ready. The village lay silent for a few heartbeats after the smoke cleared. Then came the distant crackle of gunfire, echoing through the narrow stone lanes like whispers of death. Billy didn't move from the gunner's seat. He was locked in now, like the tank had become part of him, like the crosshairs were his own eyes. "Movement North Street," Jenkins shouted from the radio. "Infantry, lots of them, maybe SS with Panzerfausts." That word, Panzerfaust made everyone flinch. They were cheap, shoulder-fired rocket weapons, and they turned Shermans into steel coffins. Donnelly didn't hesitate. "Driver, back her up. Get that wall between us and the street. Or you see him, you kill him." Thompson cursed under his breath but reversed the tank smoothly, dragging their 33-ton beast behind the half-destroyed barn. Miller was already loading another HE shell, high explosive, meant for infantry, not armor. Billy swung the turret hard left and squinted through the dust and smoke. Shapes darted between houses. Long coats, black helmets. He exhaled slow, lined up the shot just ahead of the movement, and fired. The street lit up in orange and black. Bricks flew, bodies crumpled, screams echoed. "Right side, flank!" Jenkins cried. "They're circling us!" Billy barely had time to curse when he caught the shimmer of movement along the edge of a ruined garden wall. A figure crouched low, crawling with something heavy slung over his shoulder. "Panzerfaust, 3 o'clock, 15 meters!" he barked. No time to rotate. He yanked the turret just enough and opened fire with the coaxial machine gun. Bullets tore through the air. The German soldier dropped instantly, his weapon clattering beside him. But there were more. Billy saw them now. Half a squad weaving through debris, trying to close in under cover. "Loader, frag!" Miller didn't need to be told twice. A shell clunked into the breach. Billy adjusted, aimed at the pile of rubble where the soldiers had ducked down, and squeezed the trigger. Boom! Chunks of masonry, steel and bone exploded skyward. The scream stopped. The Sherman rocked again as something hit its side. Not a direct blow, but close. Another Panzerfaust had been fired from somewhere. Thompson cursed, hands gripping the wheel like it might keep death out. "Keep moving," Donnelly snapped. "Don't let 'em box us in." Thompson spun the tank down a side alley, the treads grinding over a bicycle, a barrel, and what might have been someone's abandoned dinner table. The whole crew was soaked in sweat, eyes wide, nerves fraying at the edges. As they turned the next corner, they saw it. A tiger. It sat at the far end of the main road, huge and still, like a sleeping god of war. Its cannon was pointed slightly off to the left. Not at them, not yet. "Stop!" Donnelly whispered. "Jesus, is that thing live?" They all froze. Billy stared through the scope, breath held. The Tiger's crew hadn't seen them yet. Maybe the chaos from earlier masked their engine noise. Maybe the Tiger had just arrived. Either way, they had seconds to act. He didn't wait. "Loader! AP! Already in!" Miller barked. Billy adjusted, heart pounding. One shot. If he hit it wrong, they'd all die. He remembered the inch. That one adjustment. That one moment of clarity in a war full of confusion. He aimed just under the turret ring, the Tiger's one weak spot from the front. He took a breath, steadied, and fired. The shell screamed down the street. The hit was perfect. A loud crack. Then a burst of black smoke shot from the Tiger's turret like a dragon's dying breath. Flames licked from inside. The crew bailed out, coughing and burning, before collapsing in the mud. For a moment, no one in the Sherman said a word. Then Donnelly exhaled. "You just killed a tiger, Hart." Billy didn't answer. He was watching the fire, listening to the distant thump of artillery and the closer wails of wounded men. His stomach turned, not from guilt, not from pride, just from the weight of it all. The Sherman rolled forward again, slowly, crushing the remains of the burning Panzerfausts under its treads. The village was nearly quiet now, nearly, because nothing in war stays quiet for long. The sun was starting to burn through the grey clouds above, casting harsh, smoky light on what used to be a peaceful Dutch village. The smell of scorched metal and burnt flesh clung to the air like a disease. As the Sherman rolled past the blackened corpse of the Tiger tank, Billy sat frozen, hands still hovering over the gun controls. He had just done what most tankers only dreamed of. He'd taken out a Tiger head-on. But the victory felt empty. "You all right, Hart?" Donnelly asked from the hatch. Billy gave a small nod, not taking his eyes off the street. He wasn't all right. None of them were. They were alive, sure, but in this war, that just meant you'd get another chance to die tomorrow. Thompson pulled the tank into a wide courtyard, half surrounded by broken walls and shattered flower beds. Jenkins was on the radio, trying to contact HQ for further orders, while Miller sat with his back against the loader's hatch, sweating and breathing hard. For a few moments everything was still. Then came the sound, distant rumbling, engines. More armor. Billy's stomach dropped. "You hear that?" "Yeah," Donnelly said, grabbing the binoculars. Eyes sharp. From the far road, two shapes emerged, one smaller, moving fast, and the other crawling forward like a beast too heavy for the earth. "Panzer IV and a Stug," Donnelly muttered. "We're outnumbered." Billy looked down at the ammo rack. They were low, 2 armor-piercing shells, maybe 4 he left. That was it. No time to rest. No backup yet, just them. "Loader, AP now." "Let's take the Panzer first," Billy said. Miller moved like a machine, slamming the shell in as Thompson positioned the tank behind some fallen stone. Not great cover, but enough to give them a shot. Billy tracked the Panzer IV first. It hadn't spotted them yet, heading straight down the road like it owned it. Arrogant, confident, German. He waited until it was close enough he could see the rust on the side skirts. Then he fired. The shell punched straight through the Panzer's hull. It didn't even explode. The force alone snapped something inside, and the tank swerved before erupting into flame. The turret spun uselessly, like a head trying to look for its killer. The Stug, though, was a different beast. No turret and just a fixed gun, low profile, and built like a brick wall. And now it knew where they were. "Hey now," Billy yelled. The Sherman rocked as the Stug fired first. The shell crashed into the wall just feet from their left tread, showering the tank in dust and rubble. It was close. Too close. Billy spun the gun toward it, eyes narrow. The Stug was trying to reverse into a better angle. He could see the gun moving slightly, lining up for the kill shot. "Send it!" Donnelly barked. Billy fired. The HE shells struck just below the Stug's main gun, blasting open the front armor like a peeled can. Flames burst from the open hatches. The Stug shook violently, then stopped moving altogether. Smoke drifted through the air like slow ghosts. Inside the Sherman, no one spoke. No cheers this time. No laughter. Just breathing. Just the steady hum of the engine and the metallic sound of Miller loading the next round. Jenkins finally broke the silence. "HQ says we're holding here till nightfall. Reinforcements are stretched. Command wants us to control the crossroads." Thompson scoffed. "Control it with what? A prayer and a half-empty rack?" "We got more than they do," Donnelly said flatly. Billy leaned back, eyes closed for just a second. His muscles ached. His head throbbed. But his mind was sharp. That 1-inch change, that single adjustment, had saved all of them. Maybe more. But it came with a price. Every kill, every fireball, every burning man he saw run screaming from a hatch. It etched something deeper into his bones. Something that wouldn't wash out when the war ended, if it ever did. He opened his eyes again, as the sound of distant gunfire echoed beyond the hills. More were coming, and he'd be ready. The quiet didn't last. It never did. Evening crept in with a soft orange glow over the rooftops, but it brought no peace. Smoke still curled from the shattered tanks littering the road, like rusted tombstones. Billy sat at the gunner's station, hands clenched, eyes raw. His back ached, his neck stiff, but he didn't move. He couldn't. He was afraid that if he relaxed, even for a second, he might not be fast enough next time. Outside, a light breeze stirred ashes and dirt. Thompson was out stretching his legs, leaning against the side of the Sherman and chewing what was left of a cigarette. Miller was asleep in the loader's seat, head tilted awkwardly, snoring soft like a man who hadn't felt rest in weeks. Jenkins sat up near the hatch, scribbling something into a torn notebook. A letter maybe, or just pretending to write one, so his hands had something to do. Donnelly was up top, scanning with his binoculars, same as always. But he hadn't said much since the tiger. Maybe it had rattled him. Maybe he just knew what was coming. It started with a flicker of movement. Billy saw it first. Just a shimmer in the far tree line, maybe 300 yards out. A shadow that didn't fit. Then another, and another. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes through the scope. "Commander," he called, voice low but tense. "We got company." Donnelly snapped down, eyes sharp. "Where?" Billy pointed. "East side. In the trees, infantry." Donnelly swore under his breath. "SS again, most likely. They're testing us. A sharp crack rang out. A bullet pinged off the Sherman's side armor with a sharp metallic snap. Thompson ducked instantly and scrambled back inside. Sniper! Then the real shooting started. Rifles, machine guns, Panzerfausts. The east wall of the courtyard exploded in a shower of bricks as German soldiers rushed from the tree line like angry wasps. Dozens of them, maybe more. Firing, shouting, advancing fast. Battle stations. Donnelly yelled, "Heart, Lodi! Stop them before they reach cover!" Billy didn't need to be told twice. Miller, suddenly wide awake, shoved a shell into the breach. Billy fired. The explosion tore through the first wave, sending bodies and dirt into the air. But more kept coming. Left side, second group moving near the fountain. Jenkins called out. Billy swung the turret, lined it up, and fired again. Another blast. More smoke. More screaming. But they weren't stopping. The Germans had momentum. They'd seen the wreckage of their tanks. They were angry, desperate, dangerous. Then, through the haze, Billy saw something that turned his blood to ice. A half-track rolled into view behind the enemy line, an armored personnel carrier. And mounted on top, gleaming like death in the dying sunlight, was an MG-42, the German buzzsaw. Its barrel started to spin, and then it sang. The courtyard was instantly shredded by a storm of bullets. High-velocity rounds ripped through crates, sandbags, even trees. One smashed into the side of the Sherman's cupola, sending sparks into Donnelly's face. He dropped back down, cursing and bleeding from a shallow cut. "We need that half-track gone now!" He barked. "AP?" Miller asked, already reaching. "No," Billy said, teeth clenched. "Give me a frag." Right through the engine. He lined up the shot, ignoring the gunfire dancing around them like angry wasps. One clean aim. Deep breath, he fired. The shell struck the ground just under the half-track's front wheel. The explosion lifted the entire vehicle off the ground. The MG-42 flew through the air like a toy. The vehicle slammed back down, burning, its crew bailing out, only to be gunned down by supporting Allied infantry finally arriving from the rear. The SS troops began to retreat, dragging their wounded, scrambling back toward the woods. But Billy wasn't done, not yet. He fired again, this time into the tree line, clearing their path with fire and steel. Smoke hung in the air like a curtain. Silence followed. No cheers, no celebration. Just the hum of the engine, the hiss of cooling metal, and the flicker of flames licking the night air. Donnelly sat down beside Billy, breathing hard. "You're not a gunner anymore," he said quietly. "You're a damn executioner." Billy didn't reply. He just stared through the scope, searching for movement, waiting for the next shape in the shadows. Because there was always one more, always. Nightfall turned the village into a graveyard of shadows. The flames from the destroyed half-track flickered low now, reduced to orange embers dancing in the dark. The black sky above was heavy with smoke and tension. The kind of silence that didn't last, the kind that made even the bravest men keep their fingers close to the trigger. Inside the Sherman, the air was thick. Sweat clung to every surface. The floor was sticky with oil, soot, and dried blood, some German, some not. Billy sat slumped at the gunner's station, one eye still fixed on the scope, even though it was almost pitch black outside. He hadn't moved in an hour. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Tiger burning, the MG-42 spinning, the German soldier reaching for a Panzerfaust before Billy turned him into nothing but smoke and red mist. They were parked in the center of the village now, holding the crossroads like command had ordered. The rest of their platoon had scattered or been knocked out during the push. It was just them, one Sherman, 5 souls, and whatever was left of their courage. Thompson sat with his boots dangling out the hatch, chewing on a stick of gum like it might calm his nerves. "So," he said to no one in particular, "how many is that now, Hart?" Billy didn't answer. 4 tanks, half-track, 2 squads of infantry. Jenkins counted from memory, voice flat. All in one day. Miller, who hadn't spoken since the last firefight, muttered, "He's not counting." Donnelly lit a cigarette with shaky hands. "We don't count, not unless we want nightmares that stick around forever." Billy finally looked up. His voice was hoarse. "I already got those." A moment passed. Then the radio crackled. Allied units report heavy German movement east of your position. Possible counterattack forming. Stand by. Everyone froze. Donnelly leaned over. Repeat, HQ. Did you say counterattack? Affirmative. Tanks and infantry. You are to hold crossroads at all costs until reinforcements arrive. Billy's heart dropped. At all costs. That meant one thing. Command didn't expect them to survive. He didn't say it out loud, but they all knew. Of course, Thompson said bitterly. 5 guys and a dented Sherman with 4 shells left. Yeah, we'll hold the whole damn war. No one laughed. Billy looked out through the gunner's scope again. His eyes adjusted to the dark now. He saw something, movement, out there. Low to the ground, quiet, careful. Contact, he whispered. Donnelly rushed to the periscope. Where? Billy pointed. South Street. Someone's crawling. No, wait, multiple. They're coming in slow, using the wreckage for cover. Donnelly didn't hesitate. Red flares, now! Jenkins fired the flare pistol. A burst of red light shot into the sky, then exploded above the village like a signal to hell. It lit up the street and revealed them. Dozens of German infantry, crawling, sprinting, ducking between burned vehicles and rubble. At least 3 teams. And behind them, Billy saw the terrifying silhouette of another tank. Maybe a Panther this time, but hard to tell in the dark. Here we go again, Miller muttered, already loading. He first. Hold the AP for armor, Donnelly barked. We make 'em pay for every inch. Billy exhaled through his nose and lined up the first shot. The red flare gave just enough light to see a cluster of enemy soldiers sprinting past a cart. He fired. The explosion cracked the night open. Screams echoed. More gunfire followed from both sides. Tracer rounds lit up the dark like red lightning. The Germans were fighting desperate now. They knew the crossroads mattered. Shells whistled through the air as mortars began to fall. One struck just 20 feet from the tank, rocking them hard. Loader! Billy shouted. He in! Firing! Another blast. Bodies flew through the air like rag dolls. And still they came. Still more boots in the mud. Still more shadows rising out of the night. Billy felt something deep inside shift. Not fear, not rage. Something colder. Something dangerous. He wasn't fighting to live anymore. He was fighting to destroy. And 1 inch of adjustment had made that far too easy. The red flare faded from the sky, swallowed by smoke and darkness, but the horror it revealed stayed behind. The Sherman's engine groaned as it rocked again from a near hit, this one close enough to rattle the crew's teeth. Dust fell from the ceiling of the tank like it was trying to bury them alive. Billy didn't flinch. Another German squad sprinted down the side alley, hoping to flank them. But they were exposed. Too fast, too eager. Billy tracked them through the smoke and fired. The high-explosive shell hit dead center. The alley vanished in flame and rubble. Limbs flew. Screams echoed once, then cut off like a snapped wire. He didn't feel anything. Just steadiness. Just aim, fire, reload, repeat. 2 shells left, Miller shouted. That's it. We've still got the Cokes and the 50 cal, Donnelly called down from the turret. And if it comes to it, we've got fists and knives. And bad breath, Thompson muttered. Don't forget Jenkins' war-winning breath. No one laughed. The ground trembled, a deep, dragging rumble. Not distant, not anymore. Billy's blood ran cold. Donnelly swiveled, eyes east. Something heavy. The Panther appeared from the smoke like a ghost, slow, silent, massive. Its dark grey armor was covered in dried mud and black crosses. Its barrel stretched out like a finger of death, and this time it was pointed directly at them. Panther, Billy muttered, and it's angry. Last AP round, Miller said, holding it in his hands like a sacred object. Billy didn't blink. He lined up the shot. But the Panther was smart. It wasn't charging. It was stalking. It turned slightly, keeping its thick frontal armor toward them, crawling forward with patience, as if it knew it only needed 1 shot. Billy exhaled and aimed just like before. The 1 inch adjustment, it had saved them before. Could it do it again? Fire! Donnelly ordered. Billy pulled the trigger. The Sherman rocked. The shell screamed downrange. A direct hit, but high, too high. The round bounced off the sloped armor, sparked like fireworks, and disappeared into the smoke. No kill. The Panther paused for half a second, then adjusted its aim. Reverse! Donnelly screamed. Move now! Thompson slammed the gears. The Sherman lurched back just as the Panther fired. The enemy shell struck the corner of the stone wall beside them, exploding in a blinding flash of fire and brick. The shockwaves slammed into them like a hammer. Everyone inside the Sherman was thrown sideways. Jenkins cried out. A piece of metal had sliced across his forehead. Blood poured into his eyes. We're still alive, Donnelly barked. That wall just saved our asses. But we're out of shells, Miller said. We're dry. The Panther was advancing, confident now. Billy looked up at Donnelly. I've got an idea. Oh, hell, Thompson muttered. This guy has an idea. We're all gonna die. Billy didn't smile. He climbed up fast, eyes burning with something not entirely sane. I need the 50, he said. Donnelly looked at him like he was crazy. I won't kill it. No, Billy said, but I'll blind it. He climbed out of the hatch before anyone could stop him, grabbing the handles of the 50 caliber machine gun mounted on top. The Panther was closer now, maybe 50 yards away. Its commander had popped the hatch, scanning with binoculars. Bold move. Billy squeezed the trigger. The heavy machine gun roared to life, spraying lead into the darkness. He aimed for the viewports, the optics, the turret hatch, anything soft. Sparks flew off the Panther's armor. Then he saw it. The commander ducked too slow. The 50 round caught him in the neck. He disappeared with a scream. The Panther paused. Its turret hesitated. No direction, no orders. Billy didn't let up. He raked the gun across the viewport again. Sparks. A second hit. Then another. The Panther fired blind. The shells screamed past them and hit a building behind. The explosion shattered windows for blocks. Billy jumped back inside. She's blind now, he said. She's hunting ghosts. Then let's give her one, Donnelly growled. Thompson jammed the gears and floored the reverse. The Sherman vanished into smoke and ruins, looping around. They had no shells left, but Billy had the 50, and he wasn't done yet. The smoke swallowed them whole as Thompson backed the Sherman into the remains of a butcher shop. The building was half collapsed, the roof caved in, meat hooks swaying gently from burned rafters. The treads crushed broken tiles and shattered bones. Cow, pig, maybe not all animal. No one spoke. Everyone knew what came next. They were out of main gun shells. No AP, no HE, just the coaxial machine gun and the 50 caliber on top, and that 1-inch adjustment Billy had made. Funny how something so small had changed everything. And yet it couldn't reload a tank. Billy sat motionless at the gunner's station, eyes wide, listening. The Panther was still out there, somewhere beyond the smoke, crawling like a wounded lion, angry and confused. Its optics were gone. Its commander was dead, but it could still kill with one good shot. Jenkins, how's your head? Donnelly asked. Still bleeding, Jenkins muttered, wiping blood from his eyes with a rag that used to be white. But I can still hear the bastard. He's close. Good, Donnelly said. That means we can hurt him. Miller reached down into the floor hatch and pulled out a rusted box. What's that? Billy asked. Old trick, Miller said. He pried it open and revealed 3 German stick grenades, potato mashers, duct taped together. Donnelly's eyes narrowed. Where the hell did you get that? Picked it up after Normandy. Never found the right time. Well, Thompson said, lighting another cigarette, this feels pretty damn right. Donnelly nodded slowly. We sneak close, blindside the bastard, toss that firecracker in his tracks or engine vent, and pray it cooks his fuel tank. Billy stood up. I'll do it. No, Donnelly snapped. You're the only reason we're still alive. You stay with the gun. Miller, you're with me. Billy didn't argue. He just sat back down, checked the 50 cal, and tried not to shake. Donnelly and Miller climbed out the top hatch like ghosts, slipping into the fog of war. Jenkins handed them his sidearm just in case. Then silence. The kind that squeezed your chest and made every heartbeat feel like a scream. Billy waited. 30 seconds. A minute, 2, then the sound, clanking, grinding, metal dragging across stone. The Panther was still moving. Slow, unsure. It had crept closer, thinking the Sherman was gone. It didn't know it was walking into a trap. Billy grabbed the periscope and scanned through the smoke. There, barely visible, the giant silhouette of the panther moving between two burned-out buildings. Its turret was twitching, scanning blind. The steel beast had no eyes. Suddenly, from behind the tank, a flicker of movement. Donnelly and Miller emerged like shadows, staying low, close to the wall. Miller held the grenade bundle like it was sacred, ready to hurl it straight into hell. Billy whispered, "Come on, come on." The panther rumbled forward, its rear exposed. Perfect. Miller pulled the pin. He rushed forward, raised the bundle, and slipped. "Shit!" The clatter echoed through the street like thunder. The panther froze. Billy's heart stopped. Then Miller, in one final move of desperation, hurled the grenade bundle straight into the engine grating before scrambling back. A beat, then hell opened. The grenades detonated in a brilliant, fiery punch. The panther's rear exploded in a geyser of flame and shrapnel. The turret blew open. Fire surged through the hull. The tank roared like an animal being skinned alive. Donnelly and Miller dove behind rubble just in time as pieces of the panther rained down around them. The tank groaned, burned, then went still. Inside the Sherman, Billy slammed his fists against the gun breech, laughing. Not out of joy, out of disbelief. They did it. They'd killed a panther with nothing but nerve, duct tape, and a pocket full of rage. Jenkins grinned through his blood-streaked face. Jesus Christ. We actually won. Billy looked through the periscope again, watching flames rise from the panther like a funeral pyre. For the first time in 2 days, the crossroads were quiet. But Billy didn't relax, because war wasn't over. And men like him, men who'd learned to aim with anger and kill with inches, they didn't get peace. They got silence. Until the next fight. The crossroads smoldered beneath the morning sky, shrouded in a grey haze of ash and oil. The village that once stood proud was now a twisted skeleton. Charred walls, shattered windows, broken dreams. And in the heart of it all sat the battered Sherman, its armor blackened, its guns silent, and its crew changed. Billy leaned against the breech, staring blankly through the sight that had guided every kill. The 1-inch adjustment he'd made, that tiny correction, had turned him from a gunner into a weapon. And now that the noise had stopped, the silence was louder than anything he'd ever heard. Donnelly and Miller climbed back into the tank, coughing and limping, their faces smeared with soot and dust. Miller had blood on his hands, but it wasn't his. Part of him looked like he hadn't realized they were still alive. "Panther's gone," Donnelly said. "For good this time." Jenkins let out a dry chuckle. "We're officially out of ammo, out of luck, and nearly out of daylight." Thompson shook his head slowly. "And yet somehow we're still here." The radio crackled again, HQ finally checking in. Jenkins adjusted the dial. "Sherman at grid 47, this is command. Reinforcements inbound. Repeat, reinforcements inbound. Hold tight. You boys did good. Real good." Billy let the words wash over him. "You boys did good." Was that what they called this? Good? The streets were covered in bodies, the air thick with the stench of death. Every shot he took had hit its mark, but each kill carved something out of him. How could something so precise be so ugly? Donnelly slumped into his seat, lighting another cigarette with fingers that trembled just a bit more than before. "They're sending fresh tanks," he said. "New guys. Clean faces. Shiny boots. They won't last a week," Jenkins muttered. Billy finally turned from the gun sight. His voice came out flat. "They'll last just long enough to learn what it feels like to be hunted." Everyone went quiet. It was Thompson who broke the silence, his voice softer than usual. "You know, I used to think tanks were invincible. Steel beasts, unstoppable." "They are," Miller said quietly. "Until they're not." Donnelly exhaled a cloud of smoke. "You don't survive in one of these because it's strong. You survive because you're meaner than what's trying to kill you." Billy stood up and climbed out of the hatch, boots scraping against the scorched metal. He needed air, real air, even if it stank of fire and rot. The wind hit his face, cool and sharp, cutting through the grime on his skin. He looked out at the crossroads, the same spot they were ordered to hold at all costs. And they had. But at what cost? The panther still burned, smoke curling toward the clouds like a signal to God. The other tanks, the ones he'd killed, were quiet tombs now, their crews silenced forever. He didn't regret it. Not exactly. But he felt something deeper than regret, something heavier, like he'd aimed too perfectly, like that 1-inch adjustment hadn't just changed his gun, it had changed him. Footsteps climbed up beside him. It was Donnelly. He stood there for a while, watching the smoke rise. "You know," he said, "I saw what you did back there. Not just the shooting, the thinking, the calm." Billy didn't respond. "You were a gunner when we started," Donnelly continued. "But now you're something else." "I'm not proud of it," Billy said, his voice low. "I wouldn't trust a man who was." They stood in silence again. Somewhere, a bird chirped, almost out of place. "When this war ends," Billy said, eyes still locked on the horizon, "what do we do with all this? The things we've seen, the things we've done?" Donnelly didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You aim your life the same way you aim that gun, careful, steady, 1 inch at a time." Billy nodded. The rumble of approaching tanks echoed in the distance. Friendly engines this time. Reinforcements rolling in too late for the worst of it, just in time to see what was left behind. Billy climbed down, feeling each step like it weighed 100 pounds. The battle was over. The crossroads were theirs. But inside, the war had just begun.